So if you don't know me, I'm Jennifer Richard's daughter, and he wanted me to play a specific song. So if you will ahead and then the guy who's So when I was in fifth grade, I was a strange and sudden desire to learn to play piano. Not piano, and to play something or another. That's probably what's not excited about it. But I saw that play piano class on television, so I really wanted to play piano. And that was back in the day when they didn't have nice things like this. Like you either had to buy a real piano, you know, pianos. And my parents were like, well, we don't know, it's about money. If you lose interest after a few months, and then something, and Rachel, I don't know if you remember, do you remember this? But Dad won some sort of a big award at work. It was like Employee of the Year or something like that.
That was a very good idea.
I have to be able to play those things. No. So anyway, he won some sort of award, is the story as I remember it, and it was a cash award, so my parents chose to buy me a piano at the time. And I was thinking about it this morning when I was thinking about telling that story, and it was literally, it's really interesting, it's something maybe seeming so simple, and it's like changed the trajectory of my life. I'm now a music teacher, I work full-time as a music teacher, I play the piano semi-professionally. I even met my husband partly because we were introduced because we had mutual friends, and they were like, you need to meet Jen, she plays the piano. You need to meet Rob, she plays the piano. So it's just interesting how that can lead to so many things. So there were a few pieces that my father asked to have played today. There were two hymns, which I'm going to play when we eat, Blessed Assurance and Amazing Grace. And there was a song that we have on the playlist. It has a long title, but it was, I think it's Loving Her was the easiest thing I ever got to do, or something like that. And it was written by Chris Christopherson, but he wanted us to play the Willie Nelson version. And then the song I'm going to sing now, and then I'll turn it over basically to anyone who wants to share anything at all. But this song he specifically asked me to sing. And this is an Emmylou Paris song called Together Again. So here we go. So this is dedicated to my parents, Richard and Virginia. thank you for coming. I'm going to turn it over now to just anybody. We don't really have a program other than that. So I'm just going to have the mic up here if anyone would like to come up and share anything at all.
Actually, before he passed away, I got to visit with him in the hospital, and I had already written a eulogy for him before he passed, and just asked him if I could read it to him, and he's like, "Well, when else am I going to hear it?" So I did read that version to him. I have since, sort of gone on to another one, and then yet another one. And the main reason why is I'm not sure if the person's here, but there was a very nice eulogy, like memorial tribute on Facebook that the day he passed that one of his friends had written. And I'm reading it going, everybody knows all this stuff about him. We know the magician portion of him. We know the musician portion of him. We know how talkative he was. So I just, decided to write something a little bit more. So here we go. Hi, my name is Rachel, not to be confused with his granddaughter, formerly known as Rachel. But as we know, Dick liked to talk. So you may know me as his cheesecake girlfriend. If you don't, it's totally understood. But what happened was I was given a recipe. We kept talking about Virginia's cheesecake. And I'm like, I think I might be able to do this. So I got the recipe and made it and gave him a slice, and he appreciated that slice and said it was good, but he was a little upset with me that I didn't give him the whole cheesecake, but I have a family to feed. So anyway, he referred to me as his cheesecake girlfriend, or his neighbor girlfriend, or just his neighbor, but I just like to look and think of him more as just my friend. I first met Dick after we moved next door, and I was more friends with Virginia than Dick, because Dick was always working. And Virginia sort of took me under her wing and made sure I knew how to call the water department when we saw like the runoff coming down, and we see all this red clay coming down from the watershed. And anytime the power was out, it's like, Rachel, did you call? Yes, I called. So she was happy to be able to turn that task onto someone else. But she was talking about when Dick was going to retire, what was going to happen. They were going to take some time and they were going to travel. And they promised, it's like, we're going to do this is great, we're just waiting, Dick's going to get his retirement package. It's going to happen any day now. And they were restructuring the company, so he was going to be, given the severance package. It's going to happen, we're going to travel. And it finally happened. He finally got that severance package. He was finally going to be able to take time and go travel with Virginia. But then they couldn't. Virginia got sick. So he focused on trying to care for her and take care of her. But Virginia pulled me aside, and one of the last times I talked to her, she said, look after him. So I did. And what happened is he got to a point where he was like, I don't want to, if something were to happen to me, I don't have anybody looking after me. So I want to be able to check in with someone every day, just so that somebody knows that I made it up. And I was like, okay, I can do that. You can text me every day. And like clockwork, every day before 10:30, I would get a text message from him saying, I've gone to the senior center, cribbage, band practice, eye appointment, doctor's appointment. I was getting all this, little clippets of updates every single day for years. And if I didn't hear from him, you better believe I was texting him saying, you up? If I didn't hear from him then, I was calling. Only once did I ever have to go over because he wasn't answering the phone. It was fine. But he liked to talk, and he would talk about his life. And we would sit on the front porch, and, most of the time back then, we'd sit inside the house and just visit and everything. Okay, I'd have to go to reading. But he liked to talk, and so we would talk about his life with Virginia, his family and what they were up to, and different friends and family, and stories of his time at the post office, or his time in the military, or even his time at HBO. He told me about a vacation that he took with Jen and her family, and they went to Dolphin Island and stayed at his friend's vacation home. Rachel, he said, sometime I need to take you and the kids there. I didn't think it would happen. I just, he's a friendly guy. It's like, it's not gonna happen. But then COVID hit. And I remember his offer from years before. We were bubbling up, we were having to take care of my family, and it was a nice experience to be able to visit with him on his front porch and talk to him. But I started remembering, it'd be nice to get away. What if we do this trip to Dolphin Island, Dick? Now seems like a good time. So he arranged it, and we were all able to go down, and it was Jen's family, it was Ben, Jen, and Rob, and then my family, so it was 4 of us, and Dick. We all got to go down to Dolphin Island and spend time down there. But it was a great time because he also got to take his first long road trip in his Tesla, who he called affectionately Tessie. And that was a nice bonding experience for Dick and my husband, who was a big fanatic of Tesla. But being in lockdown and a little stir crazy, so he arranged the trip. And on that trip, Dick showed us some card tricks. He also introduced the owner, Ricarda, and her husband, and it was just a nice break in our new normal. And most of our hangouts were just talking. And I asked my kids what their impression of Mr. Dick was. And my youngest remembered the trip to Dolphin Island and the card trick he was doing. And she said she was trying to focus on the trick to see if she could figure out how he was doing the magic trick. She's trying to catch him in his illusion. But during the process, she realized that the real magic was in the storytelling. So when Mr. Dick was declining, I reached out to Ricarda and let her know that his health was failing. And she contacted him and kept in touch. And eventually I told Dick I was now friends with Ricarda, the woman who owned the place in Dolphin Island. And I said, I'm Facebook friends with her now, I'm keeping up with her. And he looked at me and he was like, well, of course you are. I introduced you. Of course you're friends. It just made sense to him that because he introduced me, we are now friends. And it was just a nice way of how Dick sort of saw people. Well, if they're friends of mine, they must be friends of yours. So I knew Dick's health was deteriorating, and I decided for his birthday, I attempted another cheesecake. This time I made a full thing for him, so I turned it in. I brought it to him, and I sat with him for a while, and he just wasn't up to me. This was really right at the end. This was his birthday. So he didn't feel much like eating, and the next day he was in the hospital. And he and Rich had Chris bring him the cheese. He had I'm trying to, I may have my timeline wrong. It was right before he went to the hospital, but it was anyway, so I had made the cheesecake for him to try. And I have a confession to make. I asked him to do me a favor, and no matter how the cheesecake tasted, was to be sure to tell you two that was the best one he's ever had. And it made him laugh too. Because of Dick, I will remember the difference between half-staff and half-mast. There's a story there. How to properly raise them and lower them, or how to properly raise and then lower the flag to half-staff. But to this day, no matter how many times he tried explaining it to me, I can't tell the difference of when to use the word further versus farther. So it's not just me. Yes.
I have the same lecture.
Repeatedly for years. So thank you, Mr. Dick, for showing us where the real magic comes from, the storytelling.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes.
I first started coming to the senior center in about 2008. Retired. You get involved in life and things that you're going to do after you retire. One of the things I wanted to do was learn how to play pool. And I showed up at the senior center, walked around, and decided this was a place I wanted to come back to. I was involved in doing other volunteer work and things like that as well. So in the early years that I was in the senior center, other than occasionally seeing Dick and his wife in the pool room, I didn't know that much about him. It was only later, when I needed to give him a ride home one time, that I got to know him a little better. And then during the pandemic, I got to know him a lot better. After the pandemic, he was very, very active at the senior center, and I enjoyed really getting to know him. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what he was involved in at the Tivoli, or way back in the beginning, it was East Cobb Senior Center. You may or may not know there's a proclamation over there from Cobb County Commissioners that you're certainly welcome to look at, where they were recognizing his volunteer work. I happen to be a volunteer, as many other people do at the senior center. We have a great time, and we try to make it a really nice place to be. Dick did the same thing. During the pandemic, after the pandemic, as people were coming back, he was there every day. He was there late in the day. He made sure everybody got out to the vehicle that they were going home in. He provided a certain amount of security. He also was a great volunteer there. Let me tell you about some of the things that he did. He helped give tours. There's not always enough staff in the offices, and sometimes they need help covering what's going on. So he would volunteer and give tours to people who were coming into the senior center, talk to them, engage them, and get them to visit and revisit the senior center and come back. And he made them feel welcome, just like he did everybody. He played a guitar. He brought in that guitar and on occasion would help instruct other people that were interested in playing the guitar. He supported the staff at the front desk during meetings. When they were short-staffed, he stayed with them until closing. The things that I loved about him was his magic tricks. As part of the fundraising, he would sit in the little foyer area, and he'd have a little can there, and he would show you a magic trick. And I'd be happy to take $1 out of my pocket and put it in the can for him to show me a magic trick, and it was a different one every time. So it was fantastic. In addition to doing that, I loved watching him teach other people how to play cards, engaging them. He did origami boxes. He used that also as a means to fundraise money for the senior center. He engaged people and taught a class on how to do that. So here's individuals that are learning how to make a bird, for example, by folding pieces of paper. I thought that was very kind of him and fascinating. He was a great storyteller. Many of the people that came in and sat in the section in the latter years of his life where he sat, he engaged in conversation. If they had problems, he tried to help them with problems. If he could give them direction in terms of solving issues, he would do that. In addition, you got to learn about playing stickball in New York. In addition to that, You got to know about how you climb a flight of stairs in one of the high rises in New York to deliver mail. Or what MPs did when he was in the military. So there was a lot to learn. One of the other things, I don't know, do any of you play pool? I know there's one or two people that have. Have you ever seen a person take two cue sticks like you would use if you were eating Asian food and pick up something with it, except he did it on a pool table. He would take two pool sticks, scoop up the cue ball, be able to aim it at another ball, and make that ball in a pocket. How many people do you know that could do that? Dick McCoy was the real thing. He was the real McCoy.
First, I just want to say thank you to the family for, putting this together. We really, at the Tim D. Lee Senior Center, both the staff currently and former staff, he meant the world to us. He, did all the things that we talked about, but also he was our friend. And we could talk about politics and religion and, just everything, and you'd walk away from that conversation feeling better every time. I lost my niece tragically in July last year, and, he just let me talk, and I just felt better. He didn't fill me with platitudes that didn't help. He just knew how to be there and be a friend. So I'm thankful for that. He was just a presence for us. Last night, I was watching the Braves, which I always did with Dick. He would be at home, and I'd be at home, and we'd text back and forth. And he would have loved the grand slam Darno had last night. Go Braves! He would have loved that. And I still find myself reaching for my phone. So it's just a loss. He was such a good person. And I was thinking about how every time he did a card trick, and I'd say, wow, how did you do that? And he always answered, how did he answer? Very well. Very well. And that's how he lived his life. How did he live his life? Very well. Thank you.
So I do patient care, and there was this fella, that fella, poked his head around the cue ball one day, and I'm like, who are you? Because he just wanted to know what I'd done, because I traced some stuff through patient care all the way over into his area there in patient accounting. Said, here's where you're losing the charge. So that's how that was my introduction to Dick. I liked his magic show. I went with him to Eddie's Trick Shop. That was pretty awesome. The one thing I remember about him was how he taught me to answer the phone. He was complaining about calling some business and they said hello. He said, hello? I don't want to hear hello. I want to hear who you are, what the business is. That's how you answer the phone when I call. So I always appreciated that about him. And you do notice that because I do support, so I talk to people regularly, call them. And do you really want to hear, Mike, this is McKesson, how may I help you? So the other thing is, Billy Mateer isn't here. She said that she was very grateful to meet Mr. McCoy because apparently the Pittsburgh office was very sexist and Mr. McCoy wasn't. So that's all I've got to say.
But I met Dick at through the senior center. Originally, we played in the band together. He was in the band, and I was a very, very raw newcomer to the band. Could barely play 3 chords, and was for some reason was accepted as a peer. But that was the beginning of my knowing Dick, and a lot of things have been said about Dick that are true. One thing that hasn't been said, I don't think, is how generous he was. He let me drive his Tesla. We had him over to the house one time for dinner, and he brought a bottle of single malt scotch. So I'm sure it cost more than the ingredients of the dinner. And Dick was he was a mellow dude. That's all there was to it. And it could go on and on about him, but I will say he still holds the record for consecutive losses at cribbage, which he owned. He didn't try to cover that up. But I really liked being around Dick. As was said before, you always felt bitter. Did I say bitter? You always felt better after talking to Dick. He had very strong political opinions, but he didn't shout them. He didn't try to push them on anybody. They were his, and he owned them too. So again, he was just a mellow dude, and I was proud to call him my friend.
Okay, there's a reason, can you all hear me? That I was hesitating because I knew I was going to get upset. I will never forget the day that I met Dick. Sitting at the senior center, I was out back with Donna and Victoria, and this Tesla pulls up in the back, and this guy gets out all in black with his shades, and I'm like, who's that? Donna's like, that's Dick. And I was like, wow, he's cool. He's so super cool, and I think I became a fan of Dick's before he became my friend. I kind of made him be friends with me. I followed him around. I thought he was cool. I thought the Tesla was cool. I thought the way he dressed was cool. I thought his attitude was cool. I was born in New Jersey, and so he liked that he had a Jersey girl around. And so he was my Yankee friend. And I didn't get to tell Dick this, but I think God brought Dick into my life at a particular time when I needed a man to come along to show me some love and a little bit of attention in a sense. And I think we did that for each other. We loved each other. We were friends. And I don't know that he knew, I don't think I knew at the time how much that would mean to me and how much I needed it at the time. I went through a lot personally, and Dick never judged me. He never gave an opinion. He just listened and he supported me. And we were really close, and we lost touch over the past few years because I left the senior center. But he always helped me with my job. He always walked us to the car. He always protected us, and having him around was having a strong man around that could show you affection. And I haven't seen an example of that a lot in my life. And so I will always be grateful to Dick. Now I want to put it on the record, because I'm speaking after Melanie, that I was his favorite Georgia girlfriend. Okay? I could drop the mic right now. I'll take it, I take it. But he called us his Georgia girlfriends. And what we knew we knew that when he said that was that he loved us and he cared for us. We knew he had other girlfriends. We knew he had cheesecake girlfriends. We knew he had girlfriends everywhere. But we also knew that the love of his life was Virginia. And as we're gonna miss Dick, but I cannot help but feel joy for them being reunited, and I can't help but vision when they saw each other again. So, Dick, we love you, and we're glad you're with Virginia. I am glad he's with the love of his life. So, I want to say thank you.
I'm a teacher, and one of the things you learn is you don't want to say, any more questions? Okay. We just say something like, what are your questions? And you just stand there and wait. So is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, well, thank you so much for coming, and I hope you stay and enjoy lunch with us, and further is a concept, and farther is distance.
Still don't get it.
Thank you.